Hello, true art believers. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I make videos of acrylic pour paintings, live stream drawing videos, and have interviews with artists internationally around the world. Before I start, make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the notifications bell. On today's episode of the Artist Interview series, I will be talking with photographer Björn Kleemann and hopefully learning a little something along the way. Enjoy the show. Bjorn, how are you doing today?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been trying to up the quality. As you can see, that nice little intro, trying to give you a little credit with that little presents Bjorn Kleemann part. I was quite impressed with that. But I'm going to try to do that more often. You were just making coffee, and you were talking about like. Tell me what kind of coffee you're making. Like you're doing a really fancy way of making coffee.
Not really fancy. It's actually really basic. You know, the Italian coffee makers that you just put in a stove with a bit of water at the bottom, coffee powder in the middle, and then it all explodes into the cup on top of it.
Is it a percolator?
And it's making an espresso, and it's all we drink.
So it's an espresso. Is that like 2 times the caffeine? Is that what it's supposed to have?
Yes. One of the interesting things, people always ask me, how can you drink coffee at this time of the night or day? Espresso is actually the lowest content of caffeine you would have in many types of coffees, simply because the water and the steam hits the actual ground powder only for a very short moment.
Uh-huh.
So it kind of pushes through and then it's done. If you want a lot of caffeine, you have to make these small, what are they called, slow drip coffees, even cold brews. They are full of caffeine, but espresso isn't all that bad.
Yeah, I've kind of stopped drinking coffee. So how often do you drink coffee? Is it like a daily thing, a morning thing, like all throughout the day?
Coffee. Sometimes my wife comes around like at 8 p.m. and says, "Do you think we should have a coffee?" And I said, "I don't see a reason why not."
And that's because that's that low caffeine count, right?
You could call it an addiction. I mean, it's bottom line is caffeine is a type of low-level drug, and if you don't get your caffeine fix in the morning, you might feel a little grumpy throughout the day. But we just enjoy that, and we've come to, this way of coffee making rather than anything else. And just experimenting with different beans.
Have you ever gone a few days without coffee?
Possibly, but I can't remember. When I'm traveling, traveling meaning being on road trips, there's a coffee in the morning, and I don't have coffee to go in a way that I have like a big can or something that I keep going. Then that's basically it. But I've never done it on purpose.
So what's it like traveling for you as a photographer?
You mean not at times like these, but in general?
In general, yeah.
Yeah. But I enjoyed being on the road and traveling by car. Other people might find it inconvenient and slow, but to me, it's like having a panoramic view in front of you, and it's an ever-changing scenery. And it also helps me to actually focus. So what I enjoy the most is doing longer road trips, a couple of days, a week or something. Because on the first day, I'm in the kind of Bay Area of San Francisco. So wherever I'm going, if I want to get out of California, it's almost a day's drive.
Mm-hmm.
The last long one I took was down to New Mexico, which, Arizona, New Mexico, it's 3 days just to get there if you want to take it easy.
Mm-hmm.
And the first day, I always use to clear my head. The idea is you drive faster than the bad thoughts that you occupy your brain can follow you. And by the end of the day, I kind of left them behind, and then I can focus on what I want to do. and enjoy those days that I spent out in the places I want to visit.
So when you're driving for that first day, like, explain to me, what do you mean, like do you have a lot of bad thoughts, or like a lot of things pulling your attention, or things that are
Yeah,
distracting you? Is that what, like,
it's what we all
leaving?
have. We all have, put it that way, different mindsets. You have your every day-to-day mindset where you need to get stuff done on a daily basis, get groceries, make food, get kids to bed, get kids out of bed, and all that type of thing. And most of us keep thinking about either what's coming, what I still need to do, or keep thinking about the past, what went well, what didn't go so well. But you're never in the moment. And that's where this driving situation gets me into. So I lose this necessity to think about what needs to be done, because being on a road trip is fairly simple. You get out of bed, you get in the car, you drive, and you have a destination. Your GPS tells you where to go. You're fine. So there's nothing else to worry about. And then you can start thinking about what you see. And I usually plan my road trip so I have time. I don't want to make as many miles as I can possibly do. So I limit that when I can to something between 250 and 300 miles per day, which isn't too much when I don't want to cover distances. When I want to cover distances, yes, then it's like 600-700 miles, but that's the exception.
How many how many hours is 200, 300 miles in a day?
What I found for my way of driving is that I can roughly cover, get a mile per minute. That makes 60 miles per hour. So 300 miles gives you 5 hours of driving.
Okay.
And that gives you enough time to get from one place to another and have meaningful stops along the way.
Is that do you find it, like, when you're traveling, is it like that first 5 hours is that like meditation for you?
In a way, it's a meditative state that I'm trying to get into. Like I said, on the first day, it's literally getting away from the daily grind. But then, there's a rhythm. To me, there's a rhythm in these days when you're getting out of a hotel. I don't camp, so I have to find a hotel or some bed. And you get your breakfast, you get in the car, and then you just leave. And usually you have like 2 or 3 hours to the next destination. And this is the most beautiful time in a way. You know, when nothing else is there that can bother me, not even the weather or anything. It's just rolling along, looking at the landscape. Depending on location, I do actually swerve off the road. So sometimes there's a sign on the road that says viewpoint. Somebody put it there for a reason, and the least I can do is check out what that reason was. So I go there. Sometimes you find something, sometimes you don't. Or you just see something along the road. Just as an example, one of the last trips I took, I came back through Utah along, what is it, Highway 12, I think it's called. That's ending up near Zions National Park in Bryce Canyon. And it's considered one of the most beautiful drives in the US, starting off somewhere in the Canyonlands. And there are many places there where they're just tracks going to one side, and then you see something in the distance, and then I just go. I have a Jeep, so I can go further than other people, and I take advantage of that. And that you end up in some sort of wilderness and think, well, this is nice. And then you like spend half an hour there enjoying the silence, which is also something that's really nice.
And would you agree that it's one of the most scenic drives, as you stated, one of the most beautiful drives?
I try to, unless again I'm trying to cover ground, I try to stay away from motorways, country road, and if it's yellow or white on a map, then it's a good road.
What's yellow white mean? Is it like that's off roads, like
No, that's still paved, but dual lanes and sometimes single lane.
Okay.
And sometimes dirt track, depending on where you are.
And it's got some really nice scenic views, huh?
You just get to places that, I mean, the idea that you visit something truly new, that idea is wrong. but you get to see something that isn't seen as often as in other times, and or as other people would.
Yeah.
And I just enjoy I enjoy loneliness, as funny as it sounds, but not seeing anybody um, is a good thing.
Are you thinking, like, what are you thinking about when you're going on those drives? What do
I'm
you're
not.
throwing?
Yeah, it's not a conscious process. I'm not sitting down and say, let's think about what I want to do with this and that. Or sometimes I know that I'm driving towards a certain location. I'm not thinking about what I want to do with it. It's kind of let the brain do its thing, and stuff pops into your head, and you just walk with it.
It almost sounds like this book that what I read about was called Deep Work, where you get in a like a state of zen where it's just that one thing that you're focusing on, and there's nothing, everything else around you is just fuzzy. It's like a baseball player, a basketball player. They don't hear the crowd. They probably hear that basketball or baseball uh, more vividly than the crowd screaming at them.
Yep, you're in the zone in a way. I think it's described like that. Are you familiar with John Cleese, the actor? I think you are, should be. Monty Pythons and so on.
Oh yes, he sounds familiar.
He has done some. It's actually almost 40 years old. He has given a talk on creativity. It's still on YouTube somewhere, and he explains how you can actively trigger creative thoughts. Doesn't always work, but part of it is what I've just described. What I'm doing with driving is to put yourself in a position where the daily stuff doesn't bother you anymore. You can do that, like I said, by the way I'm doing it, by driving, or you can literally just sit down in your chair and say, I have nothing else to do now. Let's see what comes out of my head. And then there's no judgment. So there's no right or wrong in this context. And you just see what's going to happen and let that flow. And then if you have something that works, I mean, he's writing jokes, he's writing screenplays and all of that. So if he has a line of text that works, then he kind of gets back into the idea of finishing that.
Yeah.
But the thought itself comes from a state of mind where you're not worried about anything other than letting your creative juices flow, if you like. And I really like that concept.
Do you think that is that what photography is like for you? Is that what it's for? Like, what's its mode?
In a way, yes. Photography, or the pictures that I then have in the end, they are kind of the result of that. For some of them, I had a destination. Some of the pictures I have are the result of me planning ahead, and I want not exactly this picture, but something along these lines. But others just happened. They are the result of seeing something that kind of catches my eye, and then working with it in a way. Just what's the angle here? What can I do with it? How does this look like? And so they are, well, yes, the result of this creative flow. They're not always the same. They're not always good, but in the end, this is how they come to life. And even the ones that I want to have, where I visit places that I wanted to see, for example, White Sands in New Mexico, or the dunes in Death Valley, or Crater Lake, or any of those places. I want to go there for a reason, because I've seen other pictures I've liked, and I want to see what happens when I see that place. And then I just let it happen.
Are those destinations on your to-do list, or have you been there already?
All of them I have been to.
And what was your impression?
On which one?
Either, any.
All of them. I mean, White Sands. I visited White Sands the first time in 2010. We didn't even live in the US at the time, so I was on a road trip from Denver down to New Mexico and back. And I just stumbled across White Sands and had a look and found it really interesting. And last year, was last or 2 years ago. I went back because I was very much interested in trying to see how minimalist pictures can come to life there. It's called white sands for a reason, because that sand is really as white as snow. So if you want to do black and white photography, you're halfway there, no matter where you look. It's a weird feeling driving through something that looks like snow, but still your air conditioning tells you it's 100 degrees outside. So totally off-putting and very, very strange. It's a very fine granular sand that I think if you get it into your boots, it's going to stay there forever. Again, the main purpose for me was to get minimalist landscapes from it, or anything along the lines of minimalism, because before that I had been to a workshop specialized on that. And I figured that that's a perfect place. So I had to go. What else did I mention? I mean, the Southwest, anything between where I live up north to Washington, all the way to New Mexico is just stunning no matter where you look. And I haven't made it further east than New Mexico yet, at least on the road. We've been to other places, but then that involved flying. So there is still so much to see. Like, so I don't know if you know the Badlands in North Dakota. This is one of the places where I really have to go. But that's like 5 days of driving, and I need to find the time and the place and everything. But I need to go.
So how long does it take for you to plan those type of trips? You have to go like 5 days.
Some of them are really, really quick. Depends on if I revisit a place or if I visit something new. If I go for something completely new, say, Badlands, North Dakota, was it South Dakota? Somewhere between those. It's gonna be a couple of weeks looking into details. It's going to be, because I'm driving for such a long time, I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything too important along the way. And there's this small park called Yellowstone along the way, which kind of asks you to stop there.
Yeah.
So the question is how to structure a road trip like that with, but if you say want to invest 2 weeks into that, and how much time do you spend on each of the locations, and how much travel time do you want to have, and what other places are there of interest? I already know that going into Idaho, there's a place called Craters of the Moon. I've seen that in winter, with everything closed, but seeing it in say when it's not snowed in, that's already a given that I had to stop there. And it's like a 200-mile detour from the direct road. And then there are other places, just, going to Nevada. Will I take the main interstate, or will I take Highway 50? Will I do this and will I do that, and where will I stay? So these are all considerations which are enormous fun to go through. Google Maps and the other road trip planning tools, and I really enjoy that.
What's the longest trip you've had to make, like drive?
Just for had to take. I was on a workshop for photography in Calgary, in Canada. And I was given the choice between 4 days of driving or 4 hours of flying, and there was only one choice, really. So that's probably the longest as far as distance is concerned. Yep, I think I came down in Montana, so it's quite a distance.
Okay. So I looked at your work, and you brought this up. What's your attraction, and why do you gravitate towards this like very minimal like photography approach? Very sparse objects, usually close up. Yep. Skyline is very prominent in some of them. I noticed that. What's your aesthetic with that?
To say it's just what I like is probably not a very good answer, I suppose.
I get it.
Yeah, even though that's the bottom line. It's what I really enjoy looking at. There's a quote that always comes back to me, and from another artist, and he said that a painter would start with an empty canvas and add colors and textures and shapes to it until there's a finished picture.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas as a photographer, I start with a full frame and I remove things as I go along. And I kind of try to figure out how far I can go before it's empty,
Mm-hmm.
and stop just one step before it's actually empty, and get down to the essential piece of what I'm trying to photograph. And when I want to look at, again, back to White Sands, there's one of my favorite pictures. It's literally a black on top, white at the bottom, and there's a type of flower in the middle. And I showed that during another workshop as an example of what I'm doing, and somebody who didn't know what I was doing, why I'm doing that, said, "This is White Sands, isn't it?" And that told me that even at this level of reducing content and parts in the picture still gives you actually what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, so much more than it is. Because you can also interpret anything into that with the flower and just the black and white. But that's kind of where I'm trying to go with that. And for me, it was a matter of trial and error, and just figuring out what I would like to do. I mean, I think I mentioned it in another place. I'm a late starter in terms of art. So for most parts of my life, I didn't even consider being an artist or being even a visual artist. And once I picked up a camera, I really tried to get my hands around how different things work, first technologically, and secondly, how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm not trying to document something. I'm trying to convey a feeling, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I think it does. I hope it does.
Why did you just start, why did you start making photography? Like, why'd you start taking photographs? Like, just
The
out of
reason
blue?
is so basic and so cliche, but we came home from a trip that we really enjoyed, and I looked at the pictures we took with our point and shoot. And I said, we haven't been to that place. I'm recognizing nothing what I have seen on these pictures.
Uh-huh.
And I fell into the trap that every photographer falls into eventually, is solve the problem with technology. So I decided to get a proper camera. Proper meaning SLR and interchangeable lenses and all of that, and thinking this would solve my picture making problem. As it turns out, it doesn't. It just opened a door to something that I didn't know existed at the time. Because in the beginning, I realized this thing has so many buttons. What do they all do?
Mm-hmm.
So I started taking classes. First, camera basic. What do the buttons do? And what can you do with that? And I think during one of the first classes, actually, one of these revelations already came along, because we did a long exposure. So you put your camera on a tripod at night, and then you kind of photograph the city at night and get different lights and everything. And if something moves through the picture, you get these light streaks. And we did that at a busy road, and all different types of light streaks and interesting stuff appeared in the pictures. And I realized that I can create something that didn't exist before and never will exist again in this form. So that was kind of a revelation moment, and I realized only later that this was an actual revelation to me. But you create something that isn't there, and that's art, in a way. In a nutshell, that is the art that's happening with photography. And then just to learn everything, I try to learn as much as I can about all sorts of styles. So I took classes for portrait taking, with setting up lights and controlling all these different strobes and getting effects on people, and realized that not for me, because portrait photography and people photography, the key skill is one that I don't have, and it's a people skill.
Okay.
If you want to get good portraits of people, you have to be a person who can open up somebody, in a very short time.
Make them laugh?
Make them laugh or just get past it, because everybody's nervous in front of a camera. So if you were to model for whatever type of reason, you would be nervous because you wouldn't know what to do. So you need the photographer to ease that nervousness. And not only that, but to get you as the model to a point where you are completely relaxed. And that's a people skill. It's just an unfortunate situation that I've faced all my life. People don't immediately relax when I'm around.
Why is that?
Later. It's a personality trait. It's the way I am.
Just give them some coffee.
Yeah, it's not that easy. It's I'm just not that people person.
Oh,
If you really want to know how that works, there's a documentary on Netflix called Abstract.
okay.
I don't know if you've seen that. And one of the episodes is about a photographer, a portrait photographer. His name is Plato. I think it's his artist's name. I think he also might be Greek. And once you've seen one of his pictures, you've seen all of them, or you recognize his style immediately. He is very up close, often from bottom up. And he's done people like Bill Clinton. He's done loads of musicians. I think David Bowie, Mick Jagger, and so on. Even Vladimir Putin. And for the documentary, they followed him on a shoot with Colin Powell. And that's a seasoned politician. This is a person who has multiple lines of defense around his inner self.
Mm-hmm.
He is absolutely protected against anything that can hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
It's necessary in that profession, I suppose. And this photographer broke this wall within 30 seconds. And he got to him, and he got him to relax to a stage where he would get a portrait of Colin Powell that nobody else would get.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is just technology. You need your camera, you need a proper printer, and you need the lighting setup, but that you can prepare. But what you cannot prepare is this people skill. And you have to recognize your limitations, and this is one of mine. I can't do that. So instead, I looked into street photography and all sorts of landscape photography and wildlife photography. I've done a lot of wildlife. We've traveled to quite a few places where interesting animals can be found, and it's interesting. It's like hunting, just without killing the animal. Again, I didn't find it as rewarding as I hoped it would be. I took what I, for myself, call the wildlife picture that ends all wildlife pictures. It's one of those things that you only get in very remote locations. We have been to Patagonia, so south of Argentina, where probably seen that on some documentaries, where orcas hunt on the beach. And I got one of those with an orca on the beach with a seal pop in his mouth. Doesn't get better than that. You can go to Africa and try to convince lions to dance tango with a giraffe, but it's not the same. And again, I didn't find it as rewarding as I hoped it would be. And then I started taking classes or courses in more into an artistic direction. And it coincided with probably a bit of luck with the times when Google Plus was still a thing. So, the Facebook competitor that Google had for a while.
Oh yeah, they were a thing. I never got into that.
Yeah, it's I came onto the network relatively early, and in the beginning, I think the people, the engineers behind it, and the directors who manage it, they had a heart for photography. So they did a lot of good things in terms of just displaying pictures. So they increased the pixel size and made them look better. And what also happened on the network was that a community of photographers mainly got very active, and basically what they created something they called mentorships. So it's basically free education. So if you had a special skill in photography, if you knew something, you could actually write a class around it and find people who wanted to learn that. And then people would do that. So there were all sorts of things that you could really dabble into, like I said, street photography and even camera basics, learning the camera. And one of the mentorships that really changed things for me was called the blurry mentorship. So 3 people, 2 or 3, running it with the idea that a photograph doesn't have to be in focus. And blurred lines are okay. They are not only okay, but they're something to aspire to. And they taught this class based around certain style of paintings. So you would go through impressionist, expressionist, and try to look at paintings as a photographer, trying to understand what the painter did and ask yourself, how can I recreate that?
Mm-hmm.
What techniques can I use? And there are a number of techniques, both in camera and then in processing, that you can use to achieve a certain effect. And that really changed everything for me. Learning that there's something outside of the idea of having a tech sharp photo of a beach in Hawaii or any other place. But that there's more to it, something outside of the just regular documentary photography. I think it's also called representational photography. And that's something that doesn't interest me. What interests me is beyond that, and blurring the lines between photography, even painting, even though I'm not a painter. I know nothing about painting. But getting to a point where it doesn't matter what type of tools I have used to create this, if it evokes a reaction in the viewer. And that's kind of the objective. If somebody on Instagram tells me this is such a relaxing picture, then I know I've achieved my objective. I've arrived where I want to arrive. And don't ask me where it's from, and it doesn't matter where it's from. Can be the Pacific Ocean, can be any other ocean, can be just a lake. It doesn't really matter. It matters how it makes you feel, and not where it is. I don't want to tick off places off a list. I need to go to Alaska. I need to go to Hawaii. I need to go to Florida. I need to go to Cuba. I want to go to all these places, but not for the purpose of representing them in my photographs. I want to visit them because I want to see them. And then see how certain aspects of a country, of a location, have an influence on what I do. For example, colors. Certain places have certain colors. It's quite interesting.
I noticed that you in your blurred photos, they do have a unique movement. I saw one. I just don't remember the title. I thought it was like a swarm of fish and a sweeping water flow. I don't know, but it was really quite unique the way that you described it. And I actually thought that I don't know if this is part of the blurring technique. I thought it was what you were talking about, where you set the camera out. What was it called again? Where they you set the camera out overnight and then
it's a long exposure.
Long exposure. I thought that was what it was. Is what you use to kind of create that effect. Is that one of the tools for that some blurry effects in your photographs?
Yes, long exposure is the main tool in a way, and then on top of that, it's what you do with the camera. So the long exposure, if you put your camera on a tripod, is mostly used in night photography, and in a situation where there's not enough light to get a proper exposure in the usual hundredth of a second that a camera only needs. And by putting it on a tripod, you can still get a sharp picture. But what I'm doing is not putting it on a tripod, and sometimes even intentionally slowing the shutter down by using filters, ND filters, natural density, neutral density filters. It's essentially welding glass. So a sunglass, something between a welding glass and a dark set of sunglasses, which reduces the amount of light that comes through the lens, and thereby allowing me to keep the shutter open for a longer time. And then I can move the camera. And this is how the light streaks appear. You move the camera sideways, up and down in any direction you like. And that brings out these shapes and forms that you can then later work with. So that would be one way to go. Another way to go would be to use multiple exposures of the same subject, be it just a tree. So you literally walk around the tree at 180 degrees around the tree, keep the same distance, and make an exposure every step. So you end up with 20, 25, 30, 50 pictures of that tree from different angles. And you've hopefully made sure that you stay roughly centered with your focus. And then you basically put them in Photoshop and compress them into one piece.
Oh, wow. So you're doing like a layering effect.
Yeah. It's workload heavy on the computer, but and there's often more to it, but that would be a very basic idea of getting something like it. And there are a number of people who have done the same thing, or people I've learned from, put it that way. And you can apply that to many places and many logics. And you can even go into it's fun to do that in a city, at a busy square where loads of people running around, where you have cars, where you have buses, and work with that, and then build layers upon layer of the city scene on top of each other. And I mean, the possibilities are endless. And it always changes what it feels like. So, you can see the busyness of a place and just make it kind of tactile or visible in the picture, how busy and how noisy it is. But you can also use it to literally remove people. Some people do that for landmarks where it's impossible not to get people into the frame. Say the Eiffel Tower in Paris, there's always somebody. Always. You won't get it empty even today. So one way to deal with that is to do a long exposure. You put your camera on the tripod. In this case, it's not a blurry picture or an abstract picture, but it's a way to remove people. You put your camera on the tripod, you make it like exposed for a minute, and by that time, people will have moved in and out of the frame, but they will not be recorded by the sensor.
Yeah.
By that, you just remove anybody who's in the frame. So that's another application for a similar technique.
So I noticed, a lot of the photographers I've spoken to, when they go out on their trips, they take hundreds and hundreds of photos in a day. But from my understanding of some of those processes that you're doing, those take time to do. When you are taking photographs with your methodology, with your strategy that you're implementing, do you take hundreds of photos, or is it drastically less than that?
Again, there's this idea of minimalism. I kind of pretend I have a film camera. So back in the old days, you had a camera roll of 24, and the rich kids had one with 26. But that's kind of what you had for a day. And if you went on a longer trip, you had like 5 of them with you, and you figured that should be enough. Sometimes on the workshops I've been to, I see people with these old big medium format cameras. And they have a backpack that weighs like 50 pounds, and there's like 10 plates in there. And that's all they have for the day. So you want to be really careful about your composition, and you want to be careful about what you're doing there, and how you want to achieve that goal. So generally speaking, my approach would be similar to somebody with a film or medium format camera, and rather only take 5 pictures, but 5 of them consciously and with intention, rather than 500 just shooting about. there are different scenarios when I do abstracts or camera movement. I don't always know what things are going to look like in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So in that context, it makes a lot more sense to have one more or 10 more or even 50 more and just delete them at a later stage. But generally speaking, I tend to gravitate towards people who say, shoot with intention.
Mm-hmm. Do you purposely like carry an SD card that only allows you to have maybe 50 photos?
Yeah, that would be too much. I mean, I never know what's going to happen. So I might run into a situation where I suddenly think I want to have like 100 here now, or I need to take more for some reason.
Uh-huh.
And then having this limitation put on myself and finding myself in the desert and nothing else to do, that would be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already stupid enough to only have one camera buddy and one lens and not carry anything else.
What's a camera buddy?
That's I have one camera.
Oh, you have one camera.
Yeah, and the body, since the lens is interchangeable, I have one camera body, and the body would be the camera without the lens, and then there's one lens on top.
I thought you said buddy, like you have a camera buddy that you bring with you, like, hey, buddy, let's go take photos together. I was like, is that what you mean by camera buddy? I thought you said body. Okay, camera body. So is it crazy to only have one camera body with you?
Most photographers will tell you yes, they will always have a backup.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it just because do they break often or something, or is there
not
errors?
In my experience, but again, it's like what you said earlier with backing up stuff. Some people want to have a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Some people trust the tool they have in their hands. Modern cameras don't break unless you really drop them from a high place or drown them in the ocean for a couple of minutes. Yeah.
They're also, if you have like two cameras, I don't know how much they cost nowadays, but they could be $5,000 to $7,000 of equipment.
Yes,
or is it more?
Yes,
I don't like. I know the SLRs. Well, I don't know how much does a standard SLR camera cost these days.
You can get a good one for 1,000 or less.
1,000 for less,
and that will give you your camera and one, maybe two lenses. The key factor that you want to look at is, if in doubt, get better lenses, because that's where a lot of advantages or a lot of things take place that are very important: sharpness and color correction and so on. Mm-hmm. And then the sky's the limit. If we're talking about medium format Hasselblad cameras, there are people who can buy houses for that type of money.
What kind of camera is that you could buy a house? What's a medium format Hasselblad?
Name, the Swedish company Hasselblad.
Hasselblad.
Hasselblad. They've just come out with a medium format mirrorless camera that I think only costs 15,000.
Only.
And we're not talking lenses yet. But the bigger ones, the professional ones, it's typically the type of camera you see in proper professional studio settings. This is not a camera you take out into the field.
Is that what you want?
No.
No?
No.
What kind of camera do you have?
I'm always inclined. One of my favorite photographers flat out refuses to play this game. And because he says, we photographers, we are very prone to this technology game. Mm-hmm. Somebody says I have a Nikon D3X, and the other one says I have a Canon 5D Mark something, and I have the Sony so-and-so, and everybody, and you will be comparing specs like for hours.
Oh yeah?
It's like,
does that happen a lot?
If you're really into cars, you have the same thing.
Oh, really?
Will you have a Mustang? Will you have a Challenger? Will you have a Porsche? Will you have and this doesn't get you anywhere.
Could I should have a live stream of nothing but photographers talking about their cameras.
You will need a lot of time for that. There's a whole thing on Instagram or Facebook. I think it's probably hashtag what's in your bag. And or just Google what's in your bag for cameras, and you will get an endless supply of pictures of what people carry with them. And to some part, it is necessary, depending on what type of photography you do. Just take the wildlife example. You need an extremely long and sharp lens to get a proper wildlife picture. It's a technology game. Same for sports photography. So if you get hired for photographing the Super Bowl and you are on either side of that, you want the best camera. And best camera means the fastest body, the sharpest lens, the longest lens to get what you get paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And as well for studio photography, you want the maximum amount of sharpness, you want a maximum amount of pixels that you can play with. None of these things apply to what I'm doing. I don't care about sharpness. I do care about sharpness when I want to take a sharp picture and I know how to do it, but generally speaking, I don't, it's not my primary objective. So, and again, I don't care for pixel count. You know, you have these gazillions of pixels that cameras have. Even iPhones have an insane amount of pixels, but it doesn't mean anything.
They go to like 50 now or something like that, or at least less. They probably
I
higher
don't
than that.
even follow that anymore, because at some point, so what does it mean if you can print something that you've taken with that camera and put it on the side of the building? Who does that?
It means you can.
100 feet. What's the last time? What is the last time when you did a print like that? I never did one of those.
You might need one. Maybe you will become a portrait photographer and take pictures of families, and they want their garage door with their family on the wall.
Yep. I mean, for that purpose, even today's cameras will be sufficient.
Yeah.
So I'm not into that technology game. And to answer your first question, I have an Olympus mirrorless, a couple of years old now, and I just chose it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there would be any advice I would give to anybody who wants to buy a camera for extreme, and I make the distinction between taking pictures and making pictures.
Mm-hmm.
If you go for the latter, for making pictures, figure out what budget you have, and then figure out what this will get you, and then find a camera store and go there and look at them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I chose my first camera.
Yeah.
I had like 3 or 4 cameras lined up next to each other, and you pick them up, you put them in your hand, and you try to reach all the buttons, and then you try to see how it feels does it feel natural? Does it feel cumbersome? Is it clumsy? Something off. And then you pick the one that feels the best.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You won't get the right one anyway. There is no right or wrong camera. They all have their advantages, their upsides. Some are faster, some are sharper, some are this, some are that. Bottom line is the important part is that wobbly thing that's behind the camera.
Yeah. Bjorn,
Yes.
what's a typical day look like to you? What do you usually do?
At home or on the road?
Let's like a typical work day, like a photography day, you know, outside of you driving for 5 hours. You know, there might be something you do.
Kind of comes hand in hand, and that's what I would try to do, because by now I have visited more or less everything I wanted to visit that's within a day's drive from where we live. So at this point, I'm at a stage where I'm revisiting and looking at old places again and again for different purposes, I mean, if you go to the ocean, it'll always be different.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a different sunset. The ocean will always look different, and so I could go there every day. But there is no such thing as a typical work day, I have to say.
Okay.
It very much depends on the purpose and what I want to achieve. So let's say I make the decision to get some more architecture and head down to downtown San Francisco financial district. I probably will have prepared in the sense that I have picked out a number of buildings that I know about.
Mm-hmm.
And put them kind of on a map and just follow them. Because honestly, what I do is mostly outside. So there's always the element of light and weather, which I have zero control over.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even, and for San Francisco, like half of the year it's in fog anyway. So when even going down there, you realize, the new Salesforce Tower, which is a nice architectural thing. And then you arrive on site and find that the sea fog has rolled in and half the tower is gone. So what do you do? That's why I'm making plans, and I think I'm quite good at making plans. But there's always a backup in the sense that I allow myself improvising time. Same at the ocean. You go for a sunset, and then there's fog. What do you do? But you can turn around and say, "Okay, that's it. It was a nice drive, but I'm going home." Or you can see what else is in there. And this is how some of the first of my sunset abstracts came from, because it was exactly that situation. I thought I would get a nice sunset with pink skies and orange skies and everything nice. Instead, I got a solid cloud cover, and it was drizzling. I said, "Thank you. What's this all about?" And then later, I learned that this is kind of the standard behavior if you are on the Pacific coast. Half of the time, this is exactly what you see, which also makes you wonder why people are paying millions of dollars to live there, because you spend half of your time in the fog. But that's their problem, not mine. But then you improvise. So you look around. What can I do now? Get my tripod out, get the filter on, and basically stand in the surf and make abstracts of the ocean. All grayed out, already knowing this is going to be black and white. Or using available light and produce light streaks and move that around. So there's no such thing as a typical day. I would love to. No, I don't. No, I wouldn't want to have a typical day, because it would really take away the spontaneity of things.
I have a question about like photography in a sense, like how do photographers achieve where they have the land itself lighter and then the sky darker, even though it's daylight? How they flipped the skyline to have that really dark, rich, like I would say it's black, but it's not black, because it's got like a transitional gray tone and a kind of a glow on it. You can tell that it's light outside, but the skyline has been altered. What's kind of a process has happened in there?
As of a couple of weeks ago, when Adobe released the latest update to Photoshop, it's simply called sky replacement.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's. I've seen a few discussions around that. So it's a very simple fix, and it used to be fairly complicated. Well, not fairly, a little bit of work in Photoshop to fix the sky if you have, because what you're describing is a very common problem in photography, that the intensity of light you have in the frame isn't consistent throughout the frame. So you have areas that are very bright and you have areas that are very dark. And depending on which area you expose for, the other part suffers. So the other part that gets too bright or too dark. And the new technology fix is called sky replacement in Photoshop, which is a very lazy and a very lame solution for that problem. The old school solution to that is a graduated density filter. So you basically have a filter on your lens, not a very thick one, just a light one. So you can expose for the darker parts and get them into proper lighting, which usually would give you too bright of a sky. And by using this filter, you would essentially put sunglasses on your lens and you darken that sky.
Okay.
That's one way to go. So that's the traditional way. So that's what you would have done on a film camera as well.
Mm-hmm.
And with the again, a previous technique to solve this problem would also be to do the HDR process. What's I think high definition range photography. They tend to be very oversaturated, and I think they're not as popular as they were like 10 years ago. The process behind it is to take a series of exposures. Sometimes it's even built into the camera, where you take 3 to 5 pictures, again, of a tripod of the same scene, and the software in the camera will adjust. So either the software will adjust it, or you can do it manually at home. And that will also solve the problem of something being too bright, too dark, or you can play around with it and adjust it to your liking.
Do you do a lot of photo manipulation on Adobe after your photos are done?
You have to, because, for example, for the multiple exposures, that's for me the only way to do it.
Oh, I mean, outside of those, I guess.
Yeah. Every photograph you see is edited.
To some extent?
No, every photograph, literally every photograph is edited, even the ones from your iPhone.
Oh, yeah?
There's just an automated algorithm you have no control over that
Okay.
photo for you and follows. They're really good at it by now, by figuring out what people like and what people like to see and so on.
Cheaters.
Yeah. If you were to look at the original file that the camera recorded, you'd be really disappointed.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You mean I took this?
Yeah. It's quite effective, really, what they do. But yes, literally every photograph is edited. I have nothing that is unedited. And sometimes what I only do is I sometimes push for extremes. So in the sense that I don't know if you see the one that side, no, that side behind me.
The sand dunes?
Yeah, exactly. It's a sand dune, but this type of color doesn't exist in nature, and it didn't exist in the original frame, and it didn't exist when I was there. It just so happened that it was taken during the blue hour, meaning that's the time when the sun either rises across the horizon or just falls below it, which filters out certain frequencies in the light. And the blue one stays the longest, or the blue one is very dominant at a certain point in time. That's why it's called the blue hour. And in the original to that photo, there was some blue in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, let's go all the way and get this blue out. So these are decisions that I'm making at home, and then looking at pictures and see what can I do with it. Is there something in there that sometimes I know what I want to go for. I see certain colors, I see certain shapes, and I know that I can work on them in processing. But I sometimes also just play around and see where certain filters take me, or certain manipulations take me.
So, where is your photography going? Like, where do you see it going right now?
I wish I knew. I have no idea. This question is similar to something you would get in job interviews. You know, when they ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
You don't know where you're going to see yourself in 5 years.
And if you're really cocky about it, you would say, I'll be in your position. When I, as an interviewer, would say, it only took me 1 year to get here. So if you only make it in 5 years, you're a really loser. But looking back at where we came from and how we got where we are today, if anybody had told us that this is going to happen, we couldn't have planned this. So I don't really follow the idea of I want to be able to take or make a certain picture within, I don't know, by 2025 or something. What I'm doing is I continuously look at what other people do. I look at workshops I could take, look at stuff, how I can educate myself about certain types of art, and I don't know what comes along. Maybe I will turn into a portrait photographer after all.
Yeah.
I don't think I will, but I'm very much open to what might happen, because I would never have thought that this is what I would be doing now. Trying to make abstract photographs out of well-known landscapes and irritate people with them not knowing what it is. So I'm not making that type of plan. The only plan I probably would make, or would say I am making, is to keep an open mind, to see what's happening, what's going on, and in the end, what gives me joy, what I enjoy to do, which probably is the first rule you would want to have. If I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, I should stop straight away. And if I stop enjoying doing these abstracts, I will stop and do something else, hopefully with a camera, and move into a different field or learn something new. But if the past has told me anything, it will be a gradual process. So if we were to have this again in, say, 2 years' time, all I can probably promise is that it won't be the same.
Mm-hmm.
But what it's going to be, I have no plans. And I don't even have a desire to find out what it could be. It will, sometimes things will come to you. Right? If you stop chasing them, they will come to you.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard this like phrase. I hear this a lot. When I stopped looking for money or chasing money, it just started coming towards me.
Yeah, that didn't work quite the same. The annoying bit that we have recently found is that you have to choose between financial safety and mental stability.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have an equal amount of both at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Like you look at all these celebrities who've passed away from depression and ODing and such.
That's another problem. I was more referring to, we're in Silicon Valley, so this is where a lot of people have very important jobs. At least they think they do.
Yeah.
And we know a lot of those people. And what we also see is that the overall satisfaction with their actual lives isn't where it should be.
Mm.
So you might be able to afford a house that sets you back a couple of $1 million.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you'll be spending 12 hours a day working for somebody who doesn't appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
You
And
don't appreciate what you're doing yourself.
your title and your the title that society is seeing you, like they put that on a pedestal, right? But like deep down inside, it's not. It might not be worth it, even with all that external items that people would assume would make you happy.
Yeah. Yeah, but so that it's a trade-off. Financial security, having a job that allows you to buy this type of thing, or the mental stability and this kind of feeling, I have no idea what's coming, but I'm looking forward to it. And at the same time, getting regular calls from your bank asking if I'm serious about what's not coming in. So it's either this or that, and I haven't found a way out yet, but we're looking.
Have you what was your life like before you picked up the camera and before you began working professionally as a photographer?
I was a corporate drone. So the last the last real job I had was here in California when I was a contractor for Apple. And that was based on previous experience in customer service and all of that. And the longest job I had back when we lived in Ireland was in a smaller American software company doing order management, contracts, sales support, and that type of thing. And before that, I've been in wholesales, I've been in retail. So I've done a few things, but the most defining part is probably the job in Ireland. 7 years in one job is a long time, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And that was IT back office and managing that type of thing. But and this is in parts where my attitude comes from towards this corporate world. It does pay your bills, but it doesn't. Again, it sounds cliche, but it doesn't feed your soul.
Yeah,
and you have to find something outside of that. And due to lucky circumstances, again, I was able to leave that behind, and we moved to Argentina and then to California, and I'm trying to make things work with the camera. Trying is the word. If I make it work, I don't actually know.
trying, hey. So what advice can you give to other artists?
Somebody, there's a comedian in Germany I really enjoy, and they have same problem that everybody has in current times. And he said, "I'm so happy that I can turn my profession into my hobby again." And if it's for art, the ideal situation I probably think would be if you could disconnect the art from a kind of financial value that comes with it. Because once you enter this world of buying and selling, you get driven away from the actual artistic process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what bothers me the most at the moment, is that my efforts to sell the work takes me away from my desire to create more work.
Yeah, yeah.
Finding this balance is very difficult. So what I would say is ask yourself very honestly if this thing being a hobby wouldn't be a better idea than it being a profession. And be really honest to yourself about what you're getting yourself into. Because you have a lot more, even if you work a almost full-time job in another place, you can still take the time to go out there and do the stuff you like and use the art. It doesn't have to be photography, can be any art, as a kind of balance to what has to be done. And then you have on one side what you need to do, and on the other side what you want to do. And if you can get both into a kind of equilibrium, that would be probably an ideal situation.
Yeah.
Because what I'm seeing at the moment for myself is that it's still out of balance. I want to be, no, I'm not even saying I want to be a photographer. It's what I am. I am a photographer, end of story. But having the burden on me to make that work financially compromises me being a photographer. And that is not the best of situations. It's still better than, at least at the moment, it feels better than the other situation I've described, because I don't feel like I'm suitable for office work anymore. But if it becomes necessary, it's the way I might have to go, and I don't want to. But if you can find a way for yourself to balance these two things, that would probably be the advice. Unless you're born rich, then do whatever you want.
Born rich. I hear that's a really simple thing to do. You just come out and you're rich, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and
that's how it works.
If it all happened, if we all would have come out like that, that would be perfect. But we're not quite there yet. So,
maybe someday. Bjorn, do you have any, like, I know this seems, because the way you picture yourself, you don't really, you're really in the moment type of person, and you're always observing. But do you have any, like, dream projects that you would like to do, like dream locations that you would like to go to and take photographs of? Let's just say that.
My wife and I started scuba diving a couple of years ago, and well, first you have to learn how to stay underwater without dying. And once you've mastered that, and you can enjoy your time while floating around, that's really nice and really enjoyable and really peaceful and lovely. And I figured I could be an underwater photographer as well. I'll try the same thing. And I've actually invested in a bit of equipment you need for that, which opens a whole new door to expenses that you couldn't even imagine.
Oh, I can't.
It's just the cameras themselves, they're already expensive, but the
Woo!
you need to take this camera underwater without killing it is kind of times 10. Because
Oh,
you need
yeah.
housing, and simple reason is they don't make that many. It's not a huge market, so these things are hand built.
Oh, wow.
Hand built, or most of them are hand built. They get very expensive very quickly. But what I've learned over time is you can't just take a camera underwater and start snapping around. It doesn't work that way. You have to be a really good diver first.
Yeah.
Because everything, literally everything changes. The way you perceive, even how you perceive your body, everything is different. Whereas when I go outside, when you go outside, you kind of stop, you stand, you look around, that's it. Underwater, you can't do that. So you're constantly kind of on the move, and you have to figure out how to stop that, and you have to figure out how to be stable, not crash into things. Then the light changes constantly. You know, the water filters out all the different frequencies the deeper you get. So the light, when you're down 30 feet, is completely different from when you are down at 50 feet. And you need to adjust for that. And what you see doesn't match what the camera records. It's a huge mess. It's totally, and I've tried. We've done 2 trips where I brought the camera and all the equipment. And in the end, on the second trip, I decided this isn't worth it. Because it takes all, there's a lot of joy in just diving and being in the water, observing all the creatures, small and big, and just being there, and ruining that by handling this massive piece of equipment that's, you know, how expensive it is, and you know how fragile it is, and it's bulky, and it's in your way with everything. That ruins everything.
Yeah.
So what I really would like to do and have the time for, and as mentioned earlier, being born rich, having the money to do it, is to become a really good diver.
Yeah.
To figure things out, and then at some point in the distant future, do what I do on land in water.
That'd be interesting to see.
Yep.
Especially the blurring effects that could occur with all the colors down there. You know?
Yes.
That'd be cool.
You don't see them. That's the first problem. You know, when you're diving, there's a one set of colors, or one dominant set of colors you see, and it's predominantly blue.
Oh yeah. So those camera people are lying to us. They always see those photos. They're all like very vivid. Is that so? They're like faking it?
Nope. They are just bringing light.
Okay.
So, I have a camera set up for my housing with 2 extra outside lights. If you go professional, you have like 4, and this is heavy stuff. This is a light that you can point at the moon, and you will see the light spot on the moon. They're really strong and expensive and everything, and that brings out all the colors.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I started doing it.
Yeah, I always you always see those oceanic, you know, photographs, and you see these fish with all these beautiful colors, and I did not realize that they had to have like ultra lights.
If you see what a professional photographer takes into the ocean, that's a lot of load. Yes, literally on his back, which while that you can compensate for, you don't actually have to carry it.
Is it on their back?
No, you have it in front of you. You have your housing, your camera, and then you have, it's like a thing from, what's that Spider-Man movie with that guy with the mechanical arms? It's a bit like that.
Dr. Octopus.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like that. So at the end of each arm is a strobe, but it covers like, I don't know, 3 square feet or something. You just carry it in front of you, and out of the water, it weighs like 20 pounds. So yes, that would be the dream if I had the time and the money and everything else to get to a level of diving skills that I can do that and not be bothered by it anymore. Because I mean, I've seen them in the water. Once you know what you're doing, it's not all that difficult, and then you have the time to look at things. Where right now I'm struggling to stay afloat and calm in one place. You know, if the dive master points out a kind of small critter sitting on the ocean floor, I'm struggling to stay in that place.
Yeah.
And then you see somebody who's done that for like 20 years. He just casually floats by, stops, and then continues. Yeah.
So like, how'd you do that? Oh no.
Exactly that. It's when I don't know if it's in anything you do. Once you have mastered a skill, you suddenly gain a lot of time.
Yeah.
And that's what you see in many. It's about driving a car. It's about cooking food. It's about playing an instrument. You recognize those who really know how to do it by the extra time they have and by how relaxed they are doing it. I think, and I think there's something to it. And for diving, I think we've done like 5 or so trips to Hawaii. I'd say before I get to a point where this is going to work for me, there will have to be like another 20, you know, like 2 or 3 or 4 per year, 2 weeks each, diving every day. And then I would say maybe I'm getting close.
You'd have to have like 100 something dives.
I mean, if you there's a certification process for diving anyway, for your regular certification, and then you can go up to master, in a way, master being also somebody who is allowed to teach. And part of the process is a certain amount of dives you have to take. It's like a pilot as well. If you don't fly, you lose your license.
Interesting.
If you don't, for divers as well, if you don't do like your 100 hours per year in the water, you can't qualify up.
You got to do it 100 hours a year?
I don't know what the actual number is, but you have to do a certain amount of dives before you can qualify for the next level.
Okay. Very interesting. One last question, Bjorn.
Yes.
Do you have any words of wisdom, life advice, or rules that you live by that you would like to share?
Oh. Yeah, that's like asking somebody, tell a joke.
Tell a joke.
And in that moment, your mind goes blank.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Yes, exactly. It's a simple question, but it's a very hard one at the same time.
Do you have any rules that you live by, like something that you can kind of share, like something that you do that you kind of obey every day?
Cook your own food. I think it's actually there's some wisdom in that. Even on a very simple level. Again, we're in Silicon Valley. People pretend to be working 18 hours a day, so they just get something delivered, get some fast food, and it's not good for you. If you don't know what's in your food, it's not good for you. And somebody recently argued, you know how to save the world, and we need to talk about climate change, we need to talk about overpopulation, we need to talk about war, and I don't know what else. If we were to teach to kids at school 2 simple things, there would be a significant change in the world within a generation. And those 2 things are vegan cooking and violent-free conflict resolution. You know, if you can just those 2 things teach to your kids from the moment they enter school until they leave school, it would have an impact. And I think it would have a good one.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of younger kids making their own food nowadays, like with the access of Uber and just like, gosh, there are so many things that like you can walk down the street and get food. There's like it's just everywhere. There's food everywhere, and you're just bombarded with it. Food is a very interesting thing for me because I have a weird relationship with it. I used to be big. It was bigger than they used to be. So I used to be heavier. But I have a weird relationship with it because there's this perception that you need more calories than you actually really need. Like the world, you can eat a lot less and actually be just as satiated as people think. Oh, I have to eat every 2 hours or eat like 3 times a day. And you can go a lot longer than that without eating.
Oh, yes, I know.
You know, and so I always find it interesting the way American society is kind of situated with food. You know, we're just bombarded with it. You know?
Yeah.
It's just I can't explain it other than like I remember I would on the weekend I work and I would hear someone saying like I'm hangry, and I think to myself, I don't know what you mean by like hangry mean angry and hungry.
Yeah, I know the feeling. It happens to me a
Yeah.
lot.
And I was like, you just ate like maybe an hour ago, or you just had like a snack. You're not hangry. I don't know if you know that feeling. I'm thinking to myself, I have fasted for a week or so at times, and so I know what it's like not to have any food for extended periods of time. So when I hear someone say they're hangry, I'm like, you're not hangry.
Peckish.
You're peckish.
Yeah.
That will go away. So teach kids to make their own food. And what was the second one?
It's actually not only make their own food, but vegan cooking.
Make their own vegan food.
Yes, because as much as I like my steak, I'm also aware of the problems around mass production of meat. So if we can reduce that, that would have a positive impact, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I think I wouldn't be wrong about it. The second one is violent-free conflict resolution.
Yeah.
What's
that entail?
It starts on the playground.
Okay.
There's a certain amount of violence involved in growing up anyway.
Yeah.
At some point when you're sitting in your sandbox and building your sandcastle, somebody's going to come and take your shovel away, and then there's going to be a brawl about it. That's
my son.
And that's kind of how you balance things out. But at a point where you get a little bit more conscious as a young adult, there needs to be a way of dealing with issues without resorting to violence.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, I mean, can you name a TV show that's on currently in America or has been in the past that is not romance or comedy where people are not getting shot?
No, they glorify it.
Yeah, and
it's the same.
Part of the problem, really. When I asked myself the same question, the only show I could come up with was Sherlock.
Mm-hmm.
The one with Benedict Cumberbatch, where the story revolves about solving a crime, but they don't resort to violence to solve it, to brain power. But for most other shows, be it like these CSI thingies or whatever, as soon as somebody with a police badge is involved, people are getting shot all the time.
Yeah.
And the question is, does it have to be that way?
Like well, you know, you got to talk to those writers. The writers are they're the one making it.
The writer is going to tell you, I'm only writing what people want to see.
Yeah. That's the same. That's the same thing. That reminds me, like it kind of goes with your what would you call it? Your aesthetic, your art tendencies, where you aren't making work necessarily for the masses. You're making work for yourself, in a sense. You're exploring, you're learning for yourself. Is that kind of like what it is?
Yeah, in a way, yes. People are trying to tell me you should get more, if you want to sell more, you need to get more commercial about it. You need to give people what they want. And I disagree with that. I don't need to give people what they want. I need to make what I want to see. And I'm happy for anybody who sees the same thing or something else, and therefore wants to have it for their house.
Yeah.
But having this idea, this is, how fast food comes along. Give people what they want. Kind of a self-fulfilling cycle. First you give them something, but then they want it because it's there, and then they need it, and then you're stuck in this low-level quality thing. And I don't know, I don't like it.
What was it? There's this quote. Was it? I think it was Steve Martin. Become so good at something that no one can ignore you, or no one can ignore you. Yeah. Become so good that no one can ignore you, right? And that, I think that is a good quote for like artist, because you can keep doing what you do and you get better and better and better and better at it, that no one can ignore you, right? And like you could like paint weird looking clowns, and like you start off like, why are you painting clowns, man? You need to paint landscapes. Those sell. Like, I don't know, I like painting weird clowns. And then you do so many of them that people are like, this person's legit. He makes some pretty cool, weird looking clown paintings. Let's buy some of these, right? And I think that is because that's more like you're being honest with yourself, you know, and that's where like I get kind of. It's one of the things I'm torn as an artist. I see, so like a celebrity will pass away, right? Or someone of importance will pass away, and then you see these floods of people making paintings or drawings of that, and people start buying it, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm torn, like, man, I really do. I really would. It'd be nice to have some extra cash. Do I want to ride that celebrity wave? Do I really want to do that? Or is it or to me, and then I started thinking like, I know I could sell a few. I know I could. I really know I could. But I'm like, man, that's so fake. I'm thinking to myself, that is so fake. You're not doing that art because you like making that art. You're doing that art to kind of get a quick buck. And I don't know, feels so disingenuous. Like sometimes I really want to, and sometimes I think I might do it. Like I get really close, but then again, what happens? A few things happen. I have so many other projects or drawings or pieces that I'm working on. I don't have time to do that. So that kind of stops me from doing it, right? And then I guess I just kind of psych myself out of it. So it just feels like it just. Like other artists will say, you can't shame a person for feeding their family or providing for self by doing something like that. But also in the end, is the artwork, is that your artwork, or is a third party dictating your artwork? And some people, a lot of artists, you'll see, I know this for a fact, a lot of artists, their collectors almost dictate, at least from my perspective, their collectors almost dictate their work. You know, they might have started out doing that because they truly loved it, but now they're like, what was it? Michael Keaton didn't want to do Batman 3, I believe, because he didn't want to be typecasted or something. And that's why he didn't do it, because they're gonna have Batman 3, and then they had all these like had George Clooney.
That was George Clooney, was it? Yeah, that was.
Yeah, George Clooney and Val Kilmer, and he didn't want to be typecasted. So like a lot of these artists, they're like typecasted, you know, and I don't know if they want to keep doing that. Maybe if they do, more power to them, right? But sometimes, you know, as you grow, as you get older, or just in general, your experiences change your personality a little bit. You experience new things, and you want to explore new things. You know, it's like working in corporate America for 7 years, and then it's like the same stuff every day, right? And same thing with art, right? You're doing the same thing every day. Like you want to do something different.
Well, some are happy with it. I mean, look at AC/DC. They're playing essentially the same song for 40 years now, and they're doing really, really well.
Yeah. And you can't shame them for that. But like, what if they're like, what if AC/DC was at like a meeting together, like, oh, I want to do something different, guys. Like, are you kidding me? We're making a lot of money.
Well, money can't be the reason. I think by now, just royalties from the first like 10 records would set a whole country up for life.
Don't some of them? I know that a lot of them still make work. They just don't. Publish their albums that often. I know, like, what was it, Prince? He was either making a song a day or a song a week, something ridiculous, some really astronomical amount of production as for a musician, and you never knew because his albums when did he stop making albums? I don't know, but like it's definitely hasn't been like recent, although he's passed away. But like when he was alive, it's not like I was hearing, oh, he's putting out new albums. But I know that he was making music outside of his professional career after he was kind of like officially retired, you know.
For Prince, I think part of the story is his struggle with the record companies. So I think he lost the rights to a lot of his early work.
Oh man!
I think part of his career he spent on paying it back to them, paying it back in a way that said, "I can do better than you."
Yeah.
Which is a good driving force, to be honest. But yeah, maybe it's the case. For AC/DC, I really had hoped that Angus Young would decide to change into blues and become the next Buddy Guy or something. I believe he has the potential to do it because what AC/DC always has been is a blues band.
Yeah.
He could really explore on that because he's really good on the guitar and he has the feel for it. But apparently they chose to continue to be AC/DC until they literally fall off stage, which is kind of fun to watch, but well,
yeah,
that's what they do.
Bjorn, where can people find you?
Well, I hope nobody shows up on my doorstep. We're like, I live in the Bay Area, which is everything
I mean, like online. Where can people find you on your social media and your website and such?
I have my website, björnkleemann.com, which is hopefully linked under anything that we are posting later on. I have my Facebook profile under Björn Kleemann Photography. And I have an Instagram profile with the name of Desert Orca 101, which is a reference to my car. People tell me to change it and I won't do it. It's just for the background, it is a Jeep Wrangler. It is black and white. Hence the Orca reference because they are black and white, and the Wrangler is the top predator as an off-road vehicle. So I think it makes sense. And since I don't go into the water with it, at least not over a certain limit, the desert seemed appropriate. So I liked it. And I also have a LinkedIn profile, but I don't know what it's good for.
Apparently it's making a big move. I hear it's got some good organic reach.
Yeah,
but you got to be busy in it.
I think you're on LinkedIn as well, right? I think you have to cross a certain number of people you're connected with before it gets useful.
Yeah.
And I don't have that. And I kind of use it as an address book for people I have met in the past in offices. And I check from time to time what they do and try to post some of my stuff into there. But it doesn't seem to work in that context. I know for some people it does, but not for me. So these are the main places in the internets, in the interwebs.
Bjorn, thank you so much for taking time of your day to talk to me, talk about your life, talk about your photography. I really learned a lot, and I really do appreciate it. And everyone that's watching this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I have artist interviews happening every week, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you coming on to these live streams in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bjorn.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.